the sentence didn't sound rebellious. It wasn't shouted, framed as defiance, or wrapped in controversy. When Jamie Dornan admitted that he doesn't need Hollywood anymore, it landed quietly, and that was what made it devastating. For years, Jamie Dornan had been packaged as something very specific. A face, a body, a global sex symbol molded by camera angles, headlines, and audience desire. Hollywood didn't just sell his talent, it sold an image that often spoke louder than his work. That image brought fame fast, but it also built a cage. The industry rewarded him for being seen, not always for being heard. Every role, every interview, every appearance was filtered through expectations he never asked to carry. At the height of his visibility, success looked effortless from the outside. Inside, however, the narrative was narrower than people realized. When an actor becomes a symbol, choice slowly disappears, replaced by repetition disguised as opportunity. Jamie Dornan rarely challenged that narrative publicly. He played along, stayed professional, and avoided confrontation. Silence, in his case, was often mistaken for comfort. But silence can also mean endurance. And endurance has limits. The admission that he no longer needs Hollywood didn't come after a scandal or a career collapse. It came after years of consistent work, critical praise, and sustained relevance. That context matters, because it reframes the statement as a decision rather than a defeat. What unsettled people most was the calm behind it. There was no bitterness in his tone, no resentment toward the industry that made him famous. Just clarity, the kind that usually arrives after long internal negotiations. Hollywood thrives on dependence. Actors are expected to want more visibility, bigger platforms, louder validation. To say, "I don't need this," challenges the unspoken contract that success must always be chased, never questioned. For someone once defined by desirability, that challenge cuts even deeper. Being labeled a sex symbol is flattering until it becomes permanent. At that point, it narrows perception, turning complexity into decoration. Jamie Dornan has spoken before about discomfort with that label. Not because he rejected attraction, but because it eclipsed everything else. The more the image was celebrated, the harder it became to be taken seriously beyond it. Over time, the signs of distance became visible. Smaller projects, fewer appearances, interviews that leaned toward family, privacy, and balance rather than ambition. These weren't retreats, they were recalibrations. Still, many assumed it was temporary. That eventually, he would re-engage fully, chase awards, lean back into the system that built him. Hollywood, after all, doesn't expect people to walk away once they're inside. This admission suggested otherwise. It hinted that the cost of staying had begun to outweigh the benefits of belonging. Fans reacted with shock, but also confusion. How does someone at his level decide they no longer need the industry that defines success? The question revealed how deeply Hollywood has trained audiences to equate relevance with presence. What often gets overlooked is the emotional labor behind maintaining an image. When your value is tied to how you're perceived, stepping away isn't just professional, it's personal. It requires letting go of validation that once felt essential. Jamie Dornan's words reframed his career not as a climb, but as a cycle. He had reached the point where continuation no longer meant growth, and growth, for him, seemed to demand distance. That realization doesn't come easily. It usually follows exhaustion, quiet dissatisfaction, and the sense that the system is asking more than it gives back. None of that looks dramatic from the outside. Hollywood responded the only way it knows how, by speculating. Was this burnout, disillusionment, a strategic pause? Each theory missed the simplicity of the statement itself. He didn't say he was quitting acting. He didn't say he was done creating. He said he doesn't need Hollywood anymore, and need is the key word. Need implies dependence. And for the first time, Jamie Dornan was publicly removing himself from that equation. The fall of a sex symbol, then, isn't about losing appeal. It's about shedding a role that no longer fits. What comes after is uncertain, but uncertainty, in this case, sounds like freedom. And that leaves one uncomfortable question hanging. If stepping away brings relief rather than fear, what does that say about what Hollywood had been taking all along? What followed that admission was not chaos, but distance. Hollywood did not erupt in outrage or disbelief, it paused. When someone who once embodied its most marketable fantasy calmly steps back, the system doesn't know whether to challenge the decision or quietly absorb it. For Jamie Dornan, stepping away is not the same as disappearing. It is a repositioning of power. Instead of negotiating worth through box office numbers, awards campaigns, or headlines, he is redefining value on his own terms. That distinction matters. Actors who fall usually do so because opportunities dry up or public favor shifts. This situation is different. Jamie Dornan is not being pushed out. He is choosing not to chase what once chased him. The industry has always struggled with that kind of choice. Hollywood understands ambition, hunger, even rebellion. What it does not handle well is indifference. Indifference threatens the idea that success must always look the same. For years, being a sex symbol meant constant visibility. It meant playing a version of yourself that audiences expected, even when it no longer aligned with who you were becoming. Stepping away from that identity is not a loss of relevance, it is a rejection of confinement. That rejection often comes with consequences. Fewer calls, less media coverage, a quieter presence, but it also comes with something Hollywood rarely offers freely: control. Control over time. Control over family life. Control over creative energy that no longer has to be spent maintaining an image rather than exploring a craft. Observers have noted that Jamie Dornan's recent choices reflect this shift clearly. Projects that prioritize substance over scale. Appearances that feel intentional rather than obligatory. Interviews that emphasize balance instead of ambition. These are not the moves of someone fading away. They are the moves of someone consolidating, deciding what still matters and what no longer deserves access. That kind of clarity is often mistaken for withdrawal. Hollywood, however, thrives on constant engagement. It rewards those who stay visible, compliant, and eager. Walking away, even partially, can be interpreted as arrogance or ingratitude, especially when the system believes it made you. But the truth is more uncomfortable. Systems do not create identity, they amplify it. When amplification becomes distortion, stepping back becomes necessary rather than dramatic. The fall of a sex symbol is not a collapse in desirability. It is a dismantling of a narrative that no longer serves the person carrying it. Desire fades when it is demanded. Authenticity grows when it is chosen. Fans reacted in conflicting ways. Some mourned the loss of an image they cherished. Others recognized the courage required to leave a role that guarantees attention, even when it costs peace. What often goes unspoken is the pressure that comes with being wanted constantly. Attention becomes expectation. Expectation becomes obligation. And obligation, over time, becomes exhaustion. Jamie Dornan's admission reframes success as something finite. Not an endless pursuit, but a phase that can be acknowledged and then outgrown. That perspective challenges the industry's obsession with permanence. Hollywood prefers stories of ascent or downfall. It struggles with stories of exit, especially voluntary ones. When someone chooses less, it forces a reevaluation of what more actually costs. The industry may continue without him at its center. It always does, but his absence would not signify irrelevance, it would signal a boundary being enforced. And boundaries are disruptive. They remind audiences and institutions alike that access is not guaranteed, even when fame once made it seem so. If this is the fall of a sex symbol, it is not tragic. It is deliberate. It replaces performance with presence, validation with self-definition. What comes next may be quieter. But quiet, in this context, is not emptiness, it is space. Space to choose roles without expectation, to create without pressure, to exist without explanation. That may not look like success in Hollywood terms, but it looks remarkably like freedom.